Just.
That's perfect.
Okay, very good. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is such an exciting day to be at the Loretto Hospital. I'm Dr. Allison Iwerty. I'm the commissioner at the Chicago Department of Public Health, and I could not be more thrilled to introduce the 5 people who are doing Chicago's first vaccinating and the 5 people who are receiving the first vaccines in Chicago. As you'll hear, they come from 3 different hospitals and a range of different frontline hospital-based healthcare workers. These are the people getting vaccinated first in Chicago. We had a lot of volunteers step up willing to vaccinate and be vaccinated, and these folks are the lucky ones to get us started. So what I'm going to do is just walk around. I'm going to have the person who is vaccinating introduce themselves, then the person who is being vaccinated, and we'll move all 5 together. We're doing 5 because the way the vaccine is distributed is actually in a vial that contains 5 doses. And so this is an example of a lot of the logistics behind the scenes. There's a whole lot that you don't see to get us to this point. Each of these people being vaccinated has been counseled, has gotten some paperwork. The folks at the pharmacy have worked to make sure the vaccine is drawn up properly. The people who are vaccinating are getting trained. And all of this happens to make sure that our vaccinating process in Chicago is safe and that we have all of the appropriate steps in place. And so with no further ado, let's introduce our first person who is doing the vaccinating. Just your name, your title, and your hospital.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nikhila Juvati. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer and VP of Operations at Loretto Hospital.
Hi, my name is Marina Del Rios. I'm an emergency physician. I work at the University of Illinois Hospital.
All right. Yep, I will talk us through it. What's that? I'm sorry. Do you want to take everybody else first? Oh no, we'll do them one at a time. Yeah, sorry. Do you prefer? Yeah. We'll introduce, okay. We're going to introduce everybody first, not a problem. Okay, so we've got our first pair here.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lois Clark, Director of Emergency Services and Clinical Research at Loretto Hospital.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Barbara Schultz Johnson, and I'm the Director of Nursing Services here at Loretto Hospital.
Great.
Hi, good morning. I'm Crystal Carey. I'm the Emergency Department Director and Emergency Management Coordinator here at Loretto Hospital.
Hi, my name is Mark Hooks, and I'm an emergency room nurse at the Loretto Hospital.
Good morning. I'm Deirdre Howard. I'm the Chief Nursing Officer here at Loretto Hospital.
Good morning. I'm Jamila Hill. I'm a patient care tech at the Loretto Hospital.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Abha Agrawal. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Norwegian American Hospital.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Zimney. I'm an emergency room nurse at Norwegian American Hospital.
All right, so you've met our folks. And I think we are ready. All right, we can move ahead. Do you have? We're just waiting for the pharmacy techs to bring the vaccine. There we go. Okay, perfect. You can just distribute it. So while they're getting ready, I'll just explain the process a little bit. So we have people here from the Chicago Department of Public Health, the immunization program. We have both doctors and some nurses. A lot of history here in vaccination, have been working to make sure that the staff here have all the information that they need. We also began distributing vaccine really today, and so the Loretto Hospital has also received more doses of vaccine that they will be able to store and start vaccinating larger numbers of patients. And what's happening here is we've got basically the pharmacy has already drawn up the vaccine dose. Each vaccine dose includes both a very carefully measured amount of vaccine mixed with something to dilute the vaccine. You might have heard that this vaccine is stored in ultra cold temperatures, but it is brought all the way up to room temperature before it is going into anybody's arm. So that's a question that we get a lot. So in each case here, we track very carefully the timing between when the vaccine leaves the warehouse, whether that is the warehouse of the manufacturer or the Chicago Department of Public Health's warehouse. We track very carefully the time and temperature, and then we basically, by the time we get to the patient, we are ready to go. Okay. All right, so are we ready? So what we're going to see, the doctor is going to clean off the patient's arm. Very standard procedure, just like a regular vaccine. All right. So we applaud? I think so. Okay, we'll get a Band-Aid on and move to our next pair. All right. And our third pair. All right. And our fourth pair, we ask the patients if they're left-handed or right-handed, which arm they prefer. All right. And our fifth and final pair. All right, first 5 vaccinations done. Thank you. Congratulations. All right, you folks can all stay seated. We have people stay seated for monitoring right after we complete vaccine, and we'll be transitioning over here to have some additional remarks on this exciting day. Thank you. Everyone who is not part of the speaking program. There's stickers here for people who have received their COVID vaccine.
Ready? Yeah, we're ready. Ready? You ready? Okay. All right, so thank you so much, everyone. And you can see and feel the buzz of excitement because of this historic day here in our city. So welcome everyone to Vaccine Day in the city of Chicago. This is truly an exciting and important moment in our city's history. And I want to acknowledge the leaders that are here with us today. First, starting with George Miller, the CEO of the Loretto Hospital. George. Jose Sanchez, the CEO of Norwegian Hospital, as well as Dr. Martina Del Rios of UIC, Alderman Roderick Sawyer, who's the chairman of the Committee on Health and Human Relations, along with Alderwoman Emma Mitz, also from the Great West Side, and State Rep LaShawn Ford, who's there in the back, who's also a board member at the Loretto Hospital, and of course, our Health Commissioner, Dr. Allison Arwady. This is truly an incredibly exciting day for all of us. What we just witnessed is history in the making. It's a milestone in our city's history. I said to each of the pairs of vaccinators and their patients that they are forever now part of history in the city of Chicago, and I think they recognize how important it is for them and for our city. Excuse me, we have finally, and at long last, officially taken our first steps in our long road towards COVID-19 vaccination in Chicago. We've been preparing for this moment for months, and it's important that we've taken this initial step in moving our city forward and hopefully out of this terrible pandemic that has caused so much harm and heartache for many. As we announced last week, we will now be moving forward per federal guidance. First, with inoculating, as you just witnessed, our hospital-based healthcare workers who are truly on the front lines and prioritizing those that treat COVID-19 patients or who conduct health and medical procedures that put them at high risk. Over the next few weeks, we'll be following that by giving priority to residents and staff at long-term care facilities, followed by opening appointment-only vaccination clinics all across our city for other healthcare workers later this month and through January. Later on, we'll target workers serving in essential or critical industries such as emergency services, and then individuals with underlying medical conditions, as well as adults that are 65 years and older and on from there. Though we still have a long way to go, a fact which I'll discuss more in a moment, I do want to extend my deep and heartfelt thanks to everyone involved in making this moment possible. For the scientists, the researchers, the chemists, and all who are involved in getting this vaccine through the trials, the people who participated in the trials, and there were a number of very diverse members of Chicago that participated in trials and continue to do so, but also to the Pfizer team. I look forward to Moderna's application for emergency use authorization and the others that will come behind it. It goes without saying, but I will say, all of these efforts are about saving lives and putting our entire world, not just our city and our state and our country, but our entire world back on track. In a moment, you'll be hearing more details about citywide distribution from Dr. Ardy and others. But before we do, I want to hammer this point home. Widespread community distribution of the vaccine is still months away. While this is an important and hopeful moment, to borrow a phrase from another doctor, while we can see light at the end of the tunnel, we are still in the tunnel. We still have places in our city where this terrible virus is ravaging the body, the mind, and the spirit of so many. We're still seeing, unfortunately, an uptick in the number of Chicagoans that are losing their lives every day as a result of this virus. So we have to hold these two things in our mind's eye. Hope at what the prospect of what the vaccine brings, but caution about the fact that we still are in the throes of this terrible virus, and we will be here, unfortunately, for months to come. So what does this mean for us? It means that we cannot let our guard down. It means that we must remain diligent and responsible about the things that we know protect us. Wearing masks saves lives. Period. Wearing masks saves lives. not a partisan issue, not up for debate. Wearing masks saves lives. Socially distancing, washing our hands regularly, staying at home, and avoiding unnecessary travel. And that includes, unfortunately, canceling our traditional holiday celebrations occurring now and over the next weeks. Just as we did in Thanksgiving, Chicagoans and non-Chicagoans alike must refrain from celebrating as if the virus has magically disappeared, because it has not. Whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or New Year's. There was an increase in our city's COVID positivity rate and test cases following the Thanksgiving weekend because not enough people adhered to the guidance. So I say this to all of you. COVID-19 is still real. It is still deadly. It is still killing Chicagoans and people all across the country and the world every single day. We must remain diligent. We need to slow the arc of this virus, and we can only do that if everyone in Chicago steps up, does more, and continues to follow the public health guidance. We don't want to compound the challenges that we've seen with further risky and irresponsible behavior. And again, I understand that this is hard. It's hard for everyone, me and my family included, and especially for those who live alone. A few weeks ago, I came across a letter to the editor in the Chicago Tribune written by a Chicagoan named Regina Rodriguez Martin. She asked that leaders, such as myself, extend a gesture to show we remember our residents who bear this specific burden during the pandemic. I hope that today, Regina, gives you some hope that we are headed and trending in the right direction. But I want to say this to all those Chicagoans like Regina. I want you to know that we know that we are asking you a lot, but it's absolutely essential not only to save your life, the lives of people that you love and care about, but everyone in Chicago. We have to continue to be diligent. In respect to the vaccine, when the time comes, we will be putting in place flexible programs to ensure equitable access that will accommodate different setups and environments, ranging from large centralized sites such as our city colleges to down the road working with partners to deploy vaccine at trusted community settings. So mobile vaccines will be a part of our reality. And high-trafficked community areas with the support of our racial equity rapid response team members. And I will expand on this point in a moment. Equity isn't part of our COVID-19 strategy. It is our strategy. And when it comes to our vaccine rollout, we will be leaving no one behind. We'll be taking an equitable approach to distribution by capturing the demographic information on who's actually getting the vaccine. And let me just emphasize this point. We will know if we are doing our jobs in an equitable fashion when we see the demographic information. So for every point of distribution of this vaccine, it is mandatory, not optional, mandatory, that you collect the demographic information of the people that are getting vaccinated so we understand how we are rolling out this vaccine and making sure that we are doing it in an equitable fashion. It is absolutely essential. We will be enforcing that mandate. We've talked to the governor about it. We want this to be a statewide effort. The demographic information isn't optional. You can't skip it. You must complete it, and we will be doing everything we can to make sure that that happens. But no amount of distribution gets us where we need to be without there being community trust. Now, we've seen all the polls. There is an unfortunate trust deficit nationwide when it comes to taking this vaccine, particularly among predominantly African American and Latinx communities. In order to overcome that hurdle, which we understand the historical underpinnings and know why the challenge is great. But this is a challenge we must meet and we must conquer because, folks, Black folks, my Latinx brothers and sisters, we are the ones who are most disproportionately suffering from this violence. We are the ones who must step up and make sure that we get protected from the ravages of this virus. We've suffered greatly in the city, disproportionately so, which is why we need to make sure that the vaccine is ready and available in our communities. In order to overcome these hurdles, here in Chicago, we've already begun working closely with trusted community leaders and stakeholders to get the word out to our families about this vaccine, its importance and its safety for all. We chose Loretto intentionally. This is a hospital that serves those who are in need. This is a hospital that welcomes all and does over and above its part to make sure that health care is actually delivered in an equitable fashion here on the West Side. And we want to make sure that that is a continued part of our vaccine distribution strategy. So we will be consistently updating our city's COVID-19 website, chicago.gov/COVID-VAX, VAX. And though we are still far from the end, we can now say we have entered the beginning of the end. But we still have a long way to go. We have to do our part, and we need to make sure that we step up in this moment, in this historic time. But God bless us all that we can see the light at the end of this very long and very dark tunnel. I'm got goosebumps watching this happen. I'm excited. I feel like a kid on Christmas Day. This is an incredible moment, and I am grateful for all of you for stepping up. I'm grateful for the incredible partnership that we've seen across our healthcare system. Systems that normally our competitors have united in this year of years and stepped up and done truly heroic work. I hope that the partnership that we've seen, the level of graciousness that has been exhibited, continues on post-pandemic, because what we have to be about is saving people's lives, making sure that we get people good, quality, affordable health care. So with that, I will now turn it over to Dr. Arty, but God bless us all, and thank you so much.
Good morning, and it is a good morning. I think just following up on the mayor's comment about feeling like Christmas morning, there is nothing I wanted more for Christmas than a vaccine that looked like this. Yes. We have a vaccine that now has emergency use authorization from the FDA, and it's been recommended by the CDC. It has an excellent safety profile, and it has fantastic efficacy, meaning in the trials, it was 95% protective against COVID-19. That's better than we hoped to dare for when we were thinking about vaccine development here. And I want to highlight that we care about the safety of this vaccine above all. If you go to the website, chicago.gov/coronavirus, right up at the top, there's a lot of details about all things vaccine. But I want to highlight, there's a statement on there from the 17 members of the Chicago Scientific Vaccine Work Group. These are 17 Chicagoans who are really some of our experts in vaccine science, clinical trials, health disparities, bioethics, data analysis, infectious diseases, pediatrics, reproductive health, regulatory affairs, and public health. That work group met a number of times over this last week as the FDA was deliberating, and their goal was to look at this process with us, to help advise the city of Chicago, and in fact, to make sure that the FDA evaluation of the Pfizer clinical trial data was rigorous, which they found it was, that it was grounded in science, that the benefits and risks had been carefully considered, and that the accelerated vaccine development, the fact that we have gotten here faster than anybody anticipated, did not sacrifice scientific standards or the integrity of the FDA evaluation process. I've been watching this very closely. I have felt very confident in knowing that no steps of the safety process for approving a vaccine have been skipped, and knowing that safety monitoring will continue. But these 17 experts, and you can find their names on the website, concurred and helped us feel very confident here in Chicago that the process has been good and driven by science. So what happens next related to vaccine safety and follow-up? Each of these folks has received information for a program called vSafe. And that's a program that's voluntary. You can download to your cell phone. It takes your cell phone information. And then daily, for 7 days after vaccine, you'll get a text message, and it will ask, are you having any side effects? Because we know in the trials that there are people who had side effects. Things like a sore arm, or perhaps feeling some muscle aches, and you can see data about that. These were short, they were not serious, were not long-lasting, but we want to understand, after people have gotten vaccinated, any potential for side effects. So though if they decide to sign up for this, they'll receive a text every day for the first week, and then weekly for 6 weeks, and then there's a check-in, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the line. That is just one piece of the safety monitoring that is ongoing. The trials are continuing. There's a lot of work behind the scenes. First and foremost, vaccine safety is our biggest concern. I had the pleasure of getting a chance to talk to all 10 of these individuals before we started this process today. And I just want to say that I talk a lot about numbers up here usually, right? I talk about the fact that, yes, we still have 1,600 new COVID diagnoses every day in Chicago. Yes, we are still averaging 22 Chicagoans dying every day in Chicago from COVID-19. That's more than 150 a week. And yes, our percent positivity is over 12%. But the number I care about today is 5. These 5 individuals who have been vaccinated and the 5 healthcare workers who are doing the vaccinating. Because these 10 people stand in for the 400,000 healthcare workers that we have here in the city of Chicago who have been showing up every single day since our first diagnosed case of COVID-19 back in January. When I had a chance to talk to them about why they decided to volunteer, I heard about the fact that they've been taking care of patients who couldn't have family members by the bedside, hearing about the suffering that they've seen, hearing about some of the sacrifices they've needed to make related to their own safety, care with their own families, making sure they're being especially careful related to personal protective equipment. These are the folks who have been taking care of Chicago. And I couldn't be more thrilled that the center of our Protect Chicago campaign, the vaccine, starts with these folks. So let's give them another round of applause. And I want to highlight that the representatives are just from 3 of our hospitals today, from UIC, from Norwegian, and from the Loretto Hospital. We have 34 hospitals that are all beginning vaccination really over this week. These first 5 doses were the first 5 of the 23,400 doses that the city of Chicago expects to receive in this very first week. That is our federal allotment, and it is being received. The first doses got to Chicago less than 24 hours ago, delivered to the Chicago Department of Public Health. We are ready to go and get started. We expect additional doses to be arriving over the next few days. Many of our larger hospitals are getting vaccines shipped directly from the manufacturer, but we fully expect to see all 23,000 doses here in Chicago this very first week, and then to see this grow week after week. Already today, the preliminary information has been released about the Moderna vaccine. It looks really good too. The FDA will be making its deliberations on Thursday. The CDC will follow. And we're hoping that less than a week from now, we'll be able to add a second safe and effective vaccine to our arsenal. So we're only going to grow from here. As you heard the mayor say, we're starting with healthcare workers, hospital-based healthcare workers. We will shortly, just within the next couple of weeks, be expanding to long-term care facilities, both staff and residents there. And then we're expecting by approximately the end of the year, late December, early January, to start also moving into the space of outpatient healthcare providers. But as you heard the mayor say, it is going to be a number of months before vaccine is widely available. You will see that each of these people who got vaccinated did not take their mask off, and they will not take their mask off because first, everybody needs a second dose of vaccine coming in 3 weeks. And even after that, there is a lot that we will be continuing to learn about vaccine. We're going to be wearing masks, doing our social distancing for months now as we continue to roll out this vaccine. But this is, I fully believe, the beginning of what will be the end of COVID-19 here in Chicago. We've already been at this for nearly a year, and I think we're going to be at it for probably another year by the time we really get to the point where this is in the rearview mirror. But it is within our power to keep this virus in control. You know the things that work. Please continue to do them. And we'll be giving updates, not just about our COVID cases and our tests and our positivity. We're going to start being able to give updates about vaccine numbers. And I want to thank each of you again and all of the healthcare workers in Chicago who are at the very forefront of what is going to be our campaign to protect Chicago. So happy Vaccination Day. And with that, I welcome George Miller, the president of Loretto Hospital.
Good morning, and thank you for that standing ovation. I really appreciate it. On behalf of our board of directors, our medical staff, and our senior leadership team, and we have one of our board members here, State Representative LaShawn Ford, we welcome you to the Loretto Hospital and the Loretto Hospital experience. And hopefully you found us warm, friendly, smiling, and comfortable. Even with masks on, we're required to smile. We are humbly honored today that the Honorable Mayor Lightfoot and the great city of Chicago and Commissioner of the Chicago Department of Public Health, Dr. Arwady, chose the Loretto Hospital for this site and this historic occasion. Unfortunately, too long, African Americans and Latino Americans have suffered the brunt of inequity and disparities in health care. As an example, prior to COVID, if you lived in downtown Chicago, life expectancy there was 88.2 years of life. And we couldn't open these curtains because of the cameras, but you can see downtown Chicago over my shoulder out the window. But if you come just 20-minute drive on the Eisenhower to exit 23B, that number drops down to 68.2 years of life. You lose 20 years of life in a 20-minute drive, and I think that's wrong, and that's why the Loretto Hospital mission is to change that inequity and disparity in healthcare. That's who we are, and that's what we do. Then COVID happened, and we saw the disparity and inequities in healthcare live and live in color. African Americans, Latino Americans were dying at twice the rate and infected at twice the rate of the rest of the community. We thought that was wrong. My colleague, Mr. Jose Sanchez, and I wrote a letter to the president of IHA and said, this is wrong. We have to do something about this. So we are a part of a committee dealing with inequities and disparities of health care statewide for the first time in the history of the Illinois Hospital Association. We co-chair a committee together. He's my colleague, and we're going to address this issue. But we're so very thankful that the mayor and the commissioner have recognized inequity and started with the vaccination here at the Loretto Hospital. I'm honored and pleased to say that we have a cure for vaccination. However, there is no vaccination for racism, and we have to deal with that issue and deal with it head on, and that's why we are here. We are here because we stand on the shoulders of giants who've done great work in the field to help the vaccination to be here today. And there's one particular doctor I'd like to highlight, and Dr. Kizzy Corbett. Dr. Fauci said that she is one of the leading scientists at NIH to help develop the cure for this vaccination. She is an African-American woman. We're very cognizant of the problems that plagued us in the past, like the issues at Tuskegee Institute, and the fact that Henrietta Lacks, whose T cells were used to create a solution to cancer at Johns Hopkins University, yet her and her family got absolutely nothing, and they did not tell her. And that's why this issue of the question about vaccinations have come up. But we are here to say that we are going to be, we're going to assure you and the public, we're going to have conversations, we're going to talk, we're going to have open mics to ask questions, and we want to give you all the facts and the information, as Dr. Arwady said. We will continue to provide factual information, show you the data, and show you the scientists that this is why it's important to take the vaccination. Now, the study has gone through rigorous tests. There have been thousands of Americans who've gone through and taken the test. 0 have died. Today, over 300,000 people have died in America from COVID-19. So 0 or 319,000 people dead from COVID virus right now. So I want to say that when I started here 3 years ago, my Chief Operating Officer and CFO, Dr. Nash Ahmed, and I sat down for dinner, and we mapped out a strategy of how we're going to improve the life expectancy here in the Austin community and surrounding community. We wrote it on the back of a napkin. And that napkin that Dr. Nash still has, we talked about doing medical research, doing medical information, and also becoming a teaching hospital. And we have partnered with Dr. Ali Ahmed and Affinity Health to do medical research. Dr. Arwady knows that we have been approved by 3 different pharmaceutical companies to do medical research right here at the Loretto Hospital. We invite folks to sign up. Dr. Lois Clark is our medical director. She's been the face of our ED for 20 years. She's board certified in ER physician. She is someone you can trust. We were doing medical research, double-blind studies, FDA approved, and we're the only safety net hospital in the entire state of Illinois that's approved by the FDA to do double-blind clinical trials. And although we're pleased and thrilled that both Pfizer and Moderna, have come through the door first, we will be in that conversation. We will be doing clinical trials right here at the Loretto Hospital. So if you know someone who would like to sign up, we're going to give them a stipend. We'll pay for all of their health care during the 2-year period of the study, and they'll get that health care for free right here at the Loretto Hospital. And I am going to take the vaccination because I believe that leadership is leadership does. But when it's appropriate, we certainly want our first defenders and first line to take it first. And also, again, we want to highlight the fact that all of our team members here are heroes. Like firemen who run into a burning building, they come to this facility and all the other 34 facilities like Norwegian American every day. And they take care of patients who are sick. And we still do that every day, knowing that folks have COVID, and we still do it every day because we love our jobs. We love Mondays. We get a little sad when Friday rolls around. When we go home at night, we hurry up and go to sleep so we can come back to the Loretto Hospital because we love our jobs just that much. So we're very proud of our team members, and I want to thank the mayor and the commissioner for allowing us this opportunity. We are still doing testing outside for free for this community. We've done over 19,532 of our fellow citizens testing right outside. And in fact, the Greek church was very kind enough to allow us to move in the parking lot. We bought a bigger tent that's heated. So in Chicago, I'm from Texas, in Chicago it gets a little cold in the winter. There's snow outside and it gets cold, but we have a heated tent now. We'll be doing testing there and continue to do testing until we eradicate the disease. So Mayor, thank you very much. Commissioner, thank you very much. And also Alderman Mix, thank you very much. I'd now like to turn this over, thank you for that standing ovation, turn it over to my colleague, Jose Sanchez, the President and CEO of Norwegian American Hospital.
Thank you, George, and it's hard to match that passion that George has. I witness this on a regular basis as we work together in many different fronts, especially we co-chair the Health Equity Committee of the board of the Illinois Hospital Association. But I just wanted to say that today is really a great day. And it's a day that brings hope to all of us, especially healthcare workers. And it's a blessed day because we have been able to come up with a vaccine that provides the weapon that our healthcare workers need to fight this pandemic. But also, I also wanted to openly say and thanks the healthcare community, because I was one of those that actually suffered from the COVID-19. And I spent several days out of work, and it was very scary. And all of you took care of me without having a vaccine or any medication that will work. So I want to applaud you for your work, dedication, to ensure that people like me are still standing in front of you. So thank you for the work that you have done. As you know, my name is Jose R. Sanchez. I am the president and CEO of Norwegian American Hospital. On behalf of our hospital, I want to thank George Millard, president and CEO of the Loretto Hospital, for inviting me to be part of this very special moment in the history of our city and our country. With me is Dr. Agrawal, who is the chief medical officer for Norwegian American Hospital, who actually left Chicago and came back again twice, so she loves Chicago, so welcome, Dr. Agrawal. I especially want to extend my deepest appreciation to Mayor Lori Lightfoot for her strong leadership of the city of Chicago through this pandemic. Mayor, thank you for all the work that you do. We are all much safer due to the efforts of the mayor, who has pushed forward across the city everything that she needed to fight this pandemic. The arrival of this vaccine represents a sense of hope for our city and healthcare workers. Our healthcare workers are taking on the brunt of this pandemic, treating patients that are very sick, so we are relieved to implement our vaccination plan this week. At Norwegian American Hospital, we are fully prepared to begin our vaccination implementation plan, starting with healthcare workers actually this week. We are expecting to receive the first vaccine to our hospital December 17 from the Chicago Department of Public Health. And I want to thank you, Commissioner, for your leadership as well, getting us what we need to ensure that our healthcare workers are saved. We have developed a comprehensive vaccination implementation plan that includes a tiered vaccination protocol that strictly follows the Chicago Department of Public Health. Black and brown minorities are affected more than anybody else, and you heard that from my colleague, George Millard. Currently, the city positivity rate, and I could be correct, is somewhere between 10% to 12% of those that we test. But when you do the analysis of those who we test in Humboldt Park and Norwegian American Hospital testing site, it is 34%. Okay? So that kind of validates what we have said all along in terms of the health disparities, as well that individuals who are minorities are affected actually the most with this pandemic. And so improving access to quality health care for underserved minority does not stop at our doorstep. In order to eliminate these safety-rooted inequities, we have combined our advocacy efforts with the healthcare leaders, safety net hospitals, social service agency, government, to ensure that we actually make a difference in people's life and begin to address those long-standing inequities in our country. In closing, although 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us, I want the city of Chicago to know that we are here at Norwegian American Hospital to work with you and to support you, making sure that our citizens are safe, that we have an opportunity to give them access to health care, and that this vaccine is going to be administered to everyone in the city, as the mayor stated. I'm looking forward to ensure that we all come back to some normality in our life, in our city, that we could enjoy so much of everything that we have earned through years of hard work. So on behalf of my board and the Norwegian American Hospital staff, I want to thank all of you for your hard work and dedication, especially our leaders. Thank you, Mayor, and as well as Commissioner, for your leadership. And also my friend, George. George and I are the voice of minorities in the Illinois Hospital Association, and no one take more serious our role to be an advocate for minorities' needs and health care than the two of us. George, I've been blessed by knowing you and continue to work with you. God bless you, my friend.
And now we're going to hear from Dr. Marina Del Rios.
I'm going to try really hard not to cry. I first would like to thank Mayor Lightfoot and Commissioner Arwady for the honor to be here, and thank their leadership in this process and in this year, this momentous year of 2020. It's really an honor to stand here and to take part in this moment in history. As an emergency physician who has been on the front lines of this pandemic since day one, I can attest that healthcare workers have been anxious for this day to come. Many of us, especially those of us that identify with and serve Black and Latino communities, have lost coworkers, friends, and family members. We worry about our capacity to keep our patients safe in the setting of overcrowded hospitals. We worry about bringing COVID home to our families. We worry about getting ourselves sick and becoming a burden to our coworkers who will have to cover shifts while we hopefully recover. We've witnessed too many of our essential workers, the backbone of our economy, many of them undocumented, choosing to die at home because of concerns of healthcare costs, fear of being deported, fear of not having their families at their side during their sickest days. Their stories stick with me when I return home from a shift and make me pause before making it into my house to allow myself to cry the tears of anger, frustration, and sadness that I don't want my kids to see. But we carry on, doing the best we can with the resources we have. As we say in Spanish, hacemos de tripas corazón. We mend hearts out of guts. This vaccine gives us some hope that there is an end point. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. If there is one silver lining to this year, 2020, is that we are now having more open and honest conversations about social justice. The COVID-19 pandemic brought together a remarkable cross-sectoral partnership of community leaders, elected officials, public health experts, and frontline workers to meet the urgent challenges of the devastating public health and economic impact among Latinos and among our Black communities in Chicago. As a member of Illinois Unidos, I can attest that a lot of our charge has evolved to address both immediate and long-term challenges faced by Latinos in our case, but I know that this is also the case in a lot of our Black communities, and to address really the root causes of the inequities that the pandemic broke, exacerbated, and exposed. I am honored to use my privilege as an emergency physician of the University of Illinois Hospital to advocate for the communities that we serve. And as a Latina physician, I take pride in representing the work of Illinois Unidos and in the Latino community as we work alongside city leadership to ensure that we have an effective engagement plan for communities of color and a vaccine distribution plan with a focus on equity. This has been a challenging year, but we've learned how to mend hearts out of guts. And if I could take a minute and say the same remarks in Spanish for my Spanish-speaking community. Me gustaría darle las gracias a la alcaldesa Lightfoot, a la comisionada Arwady y al liderazgo del Departamento de Salud Pública de Chicago por invitarme a participar en esta ocasión. Es un gran honor estar aquí, contribuyendo a este momento histórico. Como médico de urgencias que ha estado al frente de la batalla durante esta pandemia, puedo dar fe que los trabajadores de la salud hemos estado ansiosos por la llegada de este día. Muchos de nosotros, especialmente aquellos que nos identificamos y servimos con las comunidades negras y latinas, hemos perdido compañeros de trabajo, amigos y familiares. Nos preocupa nuestra capacidad para mantener seguros a nuestros pacientes cuando los hospitales están sobrecargados. Nos preocupa que un día llevemos COVID a casa e infectemos a nuestras familias. Nos preocupa que nos podamos enfermar y que nos convirtamos en una carga para nuestros compañeros de trabajo, quienes tendrán que cubrir los turnos mientras con suerte nos recuperemos. Hemos visto a muchos de nuestros trabajadores esenciales, la espina dorsal de nuestra economía, muchos de ellos indocumentados, que han elegido morir en casa por no enfrentar los costos excesivos del cuidado médico, por temor a ser deportados, y que temen no tener a sus familias a su lado durante sus días en el hospital. Sus historias se quedan conmigo cuando regreso a casa de un turno y me hacen pausar antes de llegar a mi casa para permitir llorar las lágrimas de ira, frustración y tristeza que no quiero que mis hijos vean. Pero seguimos adelante, haciendo lo mejor que podemos con los recursos que tenemos. Como decimos en mi lengua materna, hacemos de tripas corazón. Esta vacuna nos da esperanza de que hay un punto final a esta incertidumbre colectiva, que hay una luz al final del túnel. Si hay un lado positivo para este año 2020 es que ahora estamos teniendo conversaciones más abiertas y honestas sobre la justicia social. La pandemia de COVID-19 reunió a una notable asociación intersectorial de líderes comunitarios, funcionarios electos, expertos en salud pública y trabajadores de primera línea para enfrentar los desafíos urgentes del devastador impacto económico y de salud pública entre los latinos. El enfoque de Illinois Unidos, en mi caso, ha evolucionado para enfrentar los desafíos inmediatos y a largo plazo que enfrentan los latinos y remediar las causas fundamentales de las desigualdades que la pandemia rompió, exacerbó y expuso. Es un honor para mí utilizar mi privilegio como médico y defender las comunidades a las que servimos. Y como médico de origen latino, me enorgullece representar a Illinois Unidos y a la comunidad latina mientras trabajamos juntos con el liderazgo de la ciudad para asegurarnos de tener participación activa de las comunidades minoritarias y un plan de distribución de vacunas con enfoque en la equidad. Este año ha sido uno desafiante, pero nuestra comunidad ha demostrado que sabe hacer de tripas corazón. Muchas gracias.
Good morning. My name is Roderick Sawyer, and I serve as Alderman of the 6th Ward of the City of Chicago and Chair of the Health and Human Relations Committee. This is truly a fantastic day. I want to thank the 10 individuals that are here today, the 5 recipients and the 5 administrators that provided this vaccine. This is truly, and I want to echo what Mayor Lightfoot stated earlier, this is a truly momentous occasion. It's kind of somber to me because I do remember not so long ago talking about the inequities that have been experienced at the hands of black people, the T-cell incident, the Tuskegee experiments. We have to remember these were not that long ago. They were not that far back. So as we look at these dark periods in our time, I still have to reflect upon that. But at the same time, when we look towards the light, no pun intended, and we look toward the light and see that science has come a long way, and we have to embrace it. I get a call from a lot of my friends and texts, and the overriding call is asking, are you going to take the vaccine? I've gotten texts, people reciting Bible verses to me and saying all these things. But I remember, I won't tell the whole joke, but the joke is that when a person was stranded and someone came by that said, you need help, they said, well, God has saved me. Another person came by and said, God would save me. The person ultimately died, and he's before God and said, God, why did you forsake me? He said, I sent 2 people for you. Same thing here. We have to trust God sending these wonderful scientists and doctors to give us a vaccine that we have today. And I want to thank all of you, not just you here today, and I think it was significant being at the Loretto Hospital here on the West Side. As I heard the President talk about it on the news the other day about the disproportionate impact that COVID has hit in this area. And I think it's appropriate that we're here today. And the answer to that question is simply yes. When it's my time, I will be happy to take the vaccine. I will be happy to photograph it and let people know that I've taken the vaccine. And I want to make sure that I'm monitored, as Dr. Alwadi stated, to make sure that we have accurate demographics and information so that we can continue on with the science. And that's someone that's a believer. I'm a faith believer. I believe in God, and I believe that God sent the scientists and doctors to us to provide this vaccine for us. Thank you very much.
And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning.
Morning.
These are questions, of course, from others as well
Yes.
as mine. Is the Loretto Hospital actually the first, or are there others being administered across the city today?
No, this is the first.
And what's the time frame and supply update for those other hospitals?
I'll defer to Dr. Arty on that, but we have, the Department of Public Health has spent a significant amount of time working with the 34 hospitals to have them first make sure that they've got the infrastructure needed to store the vaccine. I think, as you know, this requires ultra-cold storage, so we've expanded the number of hospitals that have that reach, and then you've got a certain period of time once it's defrosted to make sure that you get it to the patients. But I feel very, very confident about the plan that's in place, and as the doctor already said, we got our first tranche of vaccines within the last day, and we expect to get the rest of the order that we placed this week as more vaccine comes along. Moderna is in the queue. We expect to continue vaccinating frontline healthcare workers and then move to residents and staff in long-term living facilities. But I'd like Dr. Arty to give more details.
Yes, just briefly. So each week, the city of Chicago is allotted a certain number of vaccines by the federal government based purely on our population. That first dose amount is 23,400 doses, and those are being shipped among the millions being shipped from the distributors. Ours came from Kalamazoo, Michigan, which happens to be the city where I grew up, so I love that as well. And it is arriving really throughout this week. And so we did receive the first doses at the Chicago Department of Public Health yesterday, and we fully expect many of our hospitals that have ultra-cold storage are receiving vaccine directly from that manufacturer, and we expect it here in a matter of days, if not already on the way. These are the first vaccines being given in Chicago. CDPH has started distribution processes as well. I expect hospitals to really be vaccinating by the end of this week, and we are working with all 34 of our hospitals, not just this week, but every week moving forward. We will continue to allocate vaccine week after week after week, as long as there are hospital frontline healthcare workers who need vaccination.
Does being vaccinated mean anything for the city's travel order? Are vaccinated residents exempt?
No. So as I said, we are super excited to be starting vaccination, but there are not changes at this point related to the travel order, related to wearing masks, related to social distancing. It is going to take months before we get to a point where we have enough Chicagoans vaccinated that we start being able to think about how vaccine plays into some of those larger decisions. We will continue to follow the same strategies that we've followed all along. We'll be making reopening decisions based on numbers of cases, positivity, our ability to respond, how full our hospitals are. But the good news is where we think about some of the riskiest places, our long-term care facilities, for example, we have had thousands of cases and deaths associated with those facilities. So from the health department perspective, getting vaccine into these settings right along with the healthcare workers means we will start to see some improvements in cases, in deaths, and we'll be able to move some of our response capabilities off of those very high-risk settings into other settings. So as you know, we follow the federal guidance, and we have to, related to prioritization, but we were thrilled to really start with healthcare workers and long-term care facilities, and then we'll move from there.
Is there an update on the travel order this week?
We will be putting out the update via an announcement. The only significant change is that the time for quarantine will decrease from 14 days to 10 days in line with the updated CDC recommendations. Other than that, we'll put out the updated map.
Thank you. Mayor, today while you come to Loretto Hospital, at the same time there is a vote today on Mercy Hospital and the shutdown there. Could you react to that, please?
Well, I think there's a lot of concern that's been expressed by members of the community and various elected officials. I've had extensive conversations with many of them, and I've talked to the governor about our concerns about the shutdown and really the larger implications, I should say, for our safety net hospitals, who have been faced with a number of different challenges really for years, but particularly in this time of the pandemic. And my hope is that the legislature will actually take this up to get things back on track and provide some support to the safety net hospitals. But Mercy is front and center today, and as I said, I've had extensive conversations with local elected officials and the governor about raising questions about what Mercy's plan is and whether there's a plan going forward, and I know those things are in the works.
From the Chicago Tribune, recognizing criticisms and concerns that you, the governor, and others have had over President Trump's handling of the virus, is there any room to thank the president and the government's Operation Warp Speed now that the vaccine is here?
Well, I think the thanks properly goes to the researchers, the scientists, and the people at these various pharmaceutical companies who brought this online. Of course, the president and his team should have stepped up to make sure that a vaccine was online. But just by calling it, for example, warp speed, suggested people that it was done in a way that corners were cut. So there's a lot that could have been done differently, should have been done differently to be able to save lives. And, you know, I've been very candid about my disappointment with the way in which the federal government has handled this pandemic. I think lives were lost. I know that people were needlessly put through suffering and pain because there wasn't and continues not to be a comprehensive strategy. So we're here today celebrating this momentous moment, and rightfully so, but still, under this administration's watch, many of us here and across the country are saying, where are the resources that are going to be needed to really maximize the distribution of this vaccine as it comes online, so that we make sure that anybody who needs it and wants it gets the opportunity to do it. So there's a lot of things, but the criticism remains valid.
There are several off-topic questions, including regarding the CBS 2 story last night about the raid on the social worker's home. Why did your administration go to court to try and prevent the body camera video? from being broadcast? And why is your administration asking a federal judge to punish Ms. Young for sharing video of her own home being raided?
So a couple things about that. That raid actually took place in February of 19, even before the first of 2 elections was decided. So that was not something that happened on my watch. But what I will tell you is, because of the concern that we saw and was expressed, we changed the protocols for search warrants. It requires now 2 supervisors. It requires a pre-check of the location. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we've solved every problem, but we responded to what we were seeing was way too many circumstances of officers going into the wrong home. And I watched that video, and I put myself in that poor woman's place and thinking about somebody breaking into your home. You have no idea who they are in the middle of the night and with a child, and the trauma and that causes. So I think we have taken steps to address that issue. Now, this case was litigated in federal court. The federal judge put in place an order. There's allegations that she has violated that. But what I've directed my law department to do is, with respect to this one, if there is a pending case, get that case resolved. We're looking across the board at other litigation that may have been brought before we took office. We've got to, if we messed up, we got to fess up and we got to clean it up.
Because the COPA has not yet made a decision in 22 months on this?
I just, look, I want to be careful here because I respect the independence of COPA, but give me a break that we didn't put this video out in all this time. It's ridiculous. It really is.
From the BGA, why do you think it was appropriate to personally intervene with CPS on behalf of a campaign donor as the district was looking for vendors to buy computers for remote learning? And will you continue to do these sorts of things for other campaign donors?
So what's missing from the BGA story, which is disappointing as somebody that professes to be good government, is this. At the time that email came in, it was at a time at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody and their brother was contacting me via email, via calls, via text messages, saying, Mayor, how can I help? I know that gentleman. He is a good person. He reached out and said, hey, I know that CPS is struggling to find devices. Can I be helpful? So I passed on that email. If you look at my emails from that time, I was probably getting 10 or 15 a day from people across the city of goodwill saying, Mayor, how can I help? I have access to PPE. I have access to other things that are needed to fight the pandemic, and I have access to devices that could help CPS. Recall that we had about 3 days' notice before CPS was shut down. So I have no regrets about forwarding that information on. I didn't even remember the email until I saw the BGA story. Obviously, my expectation with that and anything else is the proper vetting, the proper process is going to be followed. I assume that that's what happened then, but honestly, I haven't talked to him since that email, I think. I didn't talk to anybody at CPS about it other than, hey, here's a person who says they want to help, forward it on. And as I said, at that time, lots of people of goodwill across the city were reaching out to me and members of the administration and offering to help. And so I feel comfortable that we pass the information along, whether it was to CPS, whether it was to OAMC or others, and then a process of vetting and making a determination happen.
Back to that. Okay, back to that video. I missed a follow-up. Do you support sanctioning the woman or not on that video?
I can't comment on that. A federal judge put rules in place. It's for that judge to determine whether or not that was appropriate. I'm not going to sit here and second-guess a federal judge and putting, it sounds like, some controls in place over how the information related to that matter is handled. That's for that judge who I know and is very competent and I'm sure will be fair in assessing whether or not his rule was violated.
From Craig Delamore. Oh, gosh, Fran will kill me. You got to give me one from Fran, too.
We can.
Okay. Craig first.
Fran only gets a couple questions, not our usual 5.
All right.
Okay.
From Craig Delamore first, can you react to reports the incoming Biden administration is willing to compromise on a coronavirus relief package that does not contain aid for local government?
I'm very disappointed by what I'm seeing as the developments, and I don't know that that's the incoming Biden administration as much as it is what's going on in the Senate. You've heard me say this now many times over many months. This virus has had a disastrous impact on economies, local, state, all across the country. This is not something that should be partisan in nature. Every city, every state, whether Democrat-controlled, whether Republican-controlled, whether controlled by independents. And the notion that somehow a package would move and get to the president's desk for signature, and there would be zero relief for state and local governments is absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable. I am not someone who says this way or no way, but what are we talking about here? We in Chicago suffered an $800 million loss of revenue in 2020 alone. In 2020 alone. $1.2 billion budget deficit for 2021, 65% of which, $783 million, is directly related to the impacts of COVID-19. This has nothing to do with long-term legacy fiscal issues or pension issues. It has to do with the fact that COVID-19 has wrecked our economy. And the notion that we are supposed to just stand here with nothing, no hope from the federal government, and accept that is okay? No, absolutely not. And I have been telling everyone that I can talk to, I have made it very clear to our senators, this is fundamentally unfair, unacceptable, and I expect our federal leadership to stand up and argue why federal, state, and local funding absolutely must be part of a stimulus. If we give in to the heartless Mitch McConnell on so many issues, where's the floor? We are setting a dangerous precedent for the future that will make the new administration's work that much harder. Because what it says is, if Mitch McConnell draws a line, no matter how unreasonable, we are going to capitulate to this heartless man who has done so much harm to our country. Whether it's the judicial system, whether it's being complicit in all of the nonsense that has come out from President Trump, particularly since Election Day, that's the person we're going to follow his lead? I don't think so.
From Fran Spielman at the Sun-Times, do you support efforts to rename Outer Lakeshore Drive in honor of DuSable, and if not, why not?
What I support is long overdue efforts to acknowledge in an appropriate way DuSable was the founder of our city. And so what we have done is engaged in a conversation that is ongoing with those who are advocating for a number of different things, not the least of which is a monument to memorialize DuSable. We will figure out the appropriate way to honor the founder of our city, and we'll do it in a way that is collaborative and respectful.
One more from Fran. Your proposal to create a quick start special service area along North Michigan Avenue to generate funds for security improvements and marketing has stalled amid opposition from Hopkins and Riley. That means it won't happen during 2021. Is that a mistake given the dramatic drop in sales and foot traffic?
I do think it's a mistake. The businesses in the downtown area came to us in light of the challenges that they experienced and were facing over the course of the summer and the fall, asked for help, were willing to be taxed, and what you saw is a manifestation of aldermanic prerogative at its worst. And so the question isn't to me, the question is to those aldermen who blocked the will of the business community in their wards who are suffering and hurting and wanted some kind of relief and were willing to tax themselves to do so. What possible legitimate reason could there be? We work with the aldermen. We address every single concern that they had, even as the goalposts repeatedly kept moving. So those businesses are left high and dry because of those aldermen. It's a mistake.
Can we end on the vaccine? A lot of folks have asked me to also ask, where are teachers on the list for essential workers? When might teachers receive a vaccine?
I believe that they are in the second wave, but I will let Dr. Arty respond. Second wave meaning...
And might that help in getting schools more into classrooms?
Well, let's be clear. Let's look at the actual data and the facts. And Dr. Arty has been very, very clear on this. We've taken extraordinary efforts in our school buildings to make sure that our people are safe. And keep in mind, there have been people in our schools all year. The cafeteria workers, the janitors, now some teachers who've chosen to teach from their actual classrooms, building principals. So we have an obligation to make sure that every single person who is in our buildings is safe, and we have met that obligation, and we will continue to do so. But the most important thing when we talk about schools has to be our children. We're here today talking about equity. Where's the equity for our kids who are falling behind, who the achievement gap is growing even larger? Study after study shows that. And what we have proposed is, can we give parents options? They can opt in, they can opt out. But the line that has been drawn in court proceedings by the teachers union, which is to say, we decide and no one else, we decide and no one else, doesn't give parents options, doesn't account for the fact that many parents and students want to come back to in-person learning. And there is no substitute for in-person learning. And what I worry about, which I wish they would worry about, is what is going to happen when our kids fall even further behind? What are we going to do about the achievement gap that is widening every single day? We have an obligation to those children to provide them with the best high-quality education, and we need to build a pathway to get back into schools because we know that has the best results. All we are saying is parents should have options, and it is not right. It is not right for anybody to try to slam that door shut.
Dr. Arwady, any word on where teachers fit in to the vaccine rollout?
I would just add as a reminder that here in Chicago, as anywhere that is receiving vaccine from the federal government, we must follow the prioritization that is set out by the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices through the CDC. At this point, the only formal voted on recommendation has been for that phase 1A. That's our healthcare workers and our long-term care facilities. That organization has signaled the next group is likely to include essential workers. We expect that education staff would be part of that wave, but there are very active conversations that are happening at the federal level to clarify on that. We will be excited about vaccinating essential workers. We will be excited about vaccinating teachers and others where we get there, but just echoing the mayor, we are not in favor of waiting for vaccination to think about moving ahead with schools. The data here in Chicago, across the country and internationally, has repeatedly shown that with the appropriate practices in place, school is a safe setting from a COVID perspective for children and for adults. I'll remind you that we've had many, many schools open here in Chicago, private and parochial, and the Chicago Department of Public Health has done a lot of work every time there is a child or someone in a school setting diagnosed to do that investigation, and we found the rates of COVID were half the children who were in school compared to the ones who were not, and we found the rates of staff lower than adults who were not. We think when you take COVID seriously, as we have we know Chicago Public Schools has taken this extremely seriously, that it is the right thing from a science-based perspective to bring school back. Vaccine will be a part of that conversation as it is available, but that's likely to be sometime later into 2021.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.